When you play jazz, it really is this continuous conversation between musicians, and you're continuously trying to listen to what everybody's playing and respond appropriately. And the influence of one person can completely change the landscape of what's being creative, and I think that's amazing. And the more you develop your talents and the more you listen and experience the art that you love, the larger your tool bag gets to make those moments happen, I guess, and to be able to create exactly the color that you want musically. So I myself play more traditional forms of jazz, like bebop and hard bop and stuff. That's not to say that that's necessarily the right way or the best way to learn jazz. I think it's easier for me to look at the foundation and learn from there than learning from something later. But I've certainly met people who prefer to learn the language from later players who were inspired by early players and to learn the music that way. So I think when it comes down to it, jazz is really whatever you want it to be. I believe you should always respect the tradition and respect the people who laid the foundation for what you're playing. But no, I think the way you learn jazz is the way you learn jazz, and the way you play jazz is the way you play jazz. And as long as you can hang, I think it's cool. So I think whatever type of music you're pursuing, you really need to be listening to a lot of, and you need to be listening to players who play your instrument, and figuring out what it is that you like about them and you like about their style, then going ahead and implementing those elements into your style. I think after you do that enough, you'll begin to develop your own voice, and having your own voice and a recognizable sound is a great way to make friends musically and to make yourself known as a player. You know, I find that if I'm close to burning myself out, or if I feel that I'm really hating music or hating what I'm doing, I stop, and I step back and take a break. Because for me, it's more important to keep the spark alive that I have for music than to be reaching the arbitrary goals that I'm setting for myself at this point in my life. Not that goals don't matter, but I've got my entire life to become a good musician. Now that being said, that doesn't mean that I don't practice when I don't want to practice just because I don't want to practice. Let's see, what helps me when I don't want to practice? Remembering that it's my job and that every job comes with its own grind. And I think practice, whether you like it or not, is just part of that grind and part of keeping yourself up and ready to be a working musician. It's also important to remember in those difficult times that after 2 minutes of playing your instrument, you're going to be comfortable and ready to practice. The hardest part is always just getting up out of bed and getting into the practice room. Yeah, I always find that once I get started, I have a much better relationship with the instrument than I do away from it.
I often tell my students the answers are on the recordings. The answers are on the record. There's no shortcut to learning how to speak this language, and it's a language. If you're not studying the playing of the masters and emulating that playing, then you're trying to do an end run around the way that this music has always been taught, and you can only find your individual voice, in my opinion. There are others who disagree with me on this, but you can only find your individual voice by attempting to deal with the width and breadth of the music that's been laid down before you. So my advice would be very, very simple. Who are your heroes? Identify who your heroes are. Emulate their playing, down to the note. Endeavor to understand what they played and why they played it.
Choosing to be a professional musician is kind of a crapshoot because I've got no idea where that path will or could take me. So I've got absolutely no clue where I'll be in 20 or 30 years. I certainly hope to still be playing the bass, I hope to be sharing that with people in some capacity. I certainly hope jazz is still a part of my life, but I hope I'm exploring other mediums and other genres. I want to be happy, you know, and I want to have friends and family to love and to love me. Yeah, and I mean, I'm sort of banking on it, so I'm hoping that that my skill sets in music will provide food and a home for me.